Libya has become the latest battleground for ISIS. The militant group released a grisly video showing the beheading of 21 Egyptian Coptic Christians on a beach. Egypt was swift to retaliate. They sent warplanes to strike ISIS targets in Libya. Now Egypt is calling for an international intervention. Question: should the coalition of countries, including Canada, join in the fight? Canada has a history in Libya. After all, there was John Baird visiting Libya as part of the mission to get rid of the Gaddafi regime. Does this mark a significant spread for ISIS beyond Iraq and Syria? Joining me now, the foyer of the House, James Bezan, the Parliamentary Secretary of the Minister of Defence, Jack Harris, the NDP's National Defence Critic, Joyce Murray, the Liberals' National Defence Critic. Thanks for being here. Mr. Bezan, does Canada have a responsibility after the bombing campaign in Libya that Canada was one of the leading candidates? Now, it's a failed state. ISIS is taking root. In your view, does Canada have a responsibility to do something about it?
We're proud of the efforts that were put forward by the Canadian Armed Forces in Libya and for the work that our government did in the post-Gaddafi era. No doubt that you have ISIL taking advantage of the instability that has occurred in Libya since then, but it's outside of our mandate. Our mandate right now is to fight ISIL in Iraq. That's where we're focusing our efforts and our energy and resources. And but it just goes to prove that this genocidal, brutal organization that has been terrorizing Syria and Iraq has now crept into Libya, and that's despicable, and we condemn it in the strongest terms possible.
Hang it, Mr. Bezan. Some would say it proves that one of the great problems, and it may be relevant in the campaign in Iraq and in Syria, certainly in Libya, was that the coalition has tactics, but they have no strategy. Remember, it was 2011 that John Baird said, quote, "We are committed to supporting the Libyan people as they transition to democracy." Charlie Bouchard, the Canadian general who ran the air mission, even told me on CBC Radio's The House and on this program, we left Libya too soon. Libya is a failed state. It's not just ISIS, by the way. Tripoli, Tobruk, all over Libya, it is a failed state. And I ask you, again, it's not outside the mandate necessarily of the ISIS fight in Iraq. It was the mandate in 2011. Does your government have an obligation to go back and help out the transition to democracy, which is failing in Libya?
But that mandate came to an end, and like anything, we set policy whenever we provide military intervention. It's a practice of our government to receive parliamentary approval to do that. And so our mandate right now, as it exists today, is to be working against the ISIL terrorists in Iraq and providing the ground troops with the Special Operation Forces and aiding and assisting and commanding and working alongside Kurdish, Peshmerga, and Iraqi security forces. Ultimately, it is the local people, the nationals within Iraq and Syria or Libya, to take control of their own destiny.
But be very careful, because if you say we'll help destroy it, but ultimately it's their position, because here we are now looking at Libya. Now ISIS is in Libya. Now ISIS is beheading people in Libya. So what lessons have you drawn from the 2011 mission in Libya, which now is a base for ISIS, the very group your government is fighting and the Canadians are fighting in Iraq?
We're very proud of the work that we do with the Canadian Armed Forces. It's dangerous work, but they're prepared to take on this risk in making sure that we have control of the situation that has the potential to threaten us here in Canada. And that's what our fight in Iraq is all about. Now, there's no doubt that the situation in Libya has become increasingly destabilized, and that's how come ISIL has the potential to deal with it. But our focus, our country right now, can only handle the activities that we're undertaking and the mandate that we've been given by Parliament in Iraq.
All right, Jack Harris, Egypt, France, Italy are calling for the United Nations to stop the spread of ISIS in Libya. Is it time, in your view, for Western allies to re-intervene in that country?
Well, you know, I want to deal with what you asked Mr. Bezan, because I was on this program many times in 2011. My party supported the initial mission into Libya. We withdrew that support because it changed away from what was supposed to be the protection of people within Libya, the responsibility to protect, and moved into a whole different thing. It was all about regime change and Gaddafi must go and let's get him. Well, he's gone. Well, the operation was a success, but the patient died. And we didn't do what we had to do in terms of what was going on in Libya when the mission was happening, making sure that there were people people there, working with them to have a transition government. That never happened. So we
So
did
what
the
about
job.
now, Mr.
We
Harris?
did the job and left. So I think we got to learn some lessons here. I mean, even Italy is saying today, and I read what the Foreign Minister Gentiloni said in their parliament. He said, you know, there's no real military solution here. They are looking for help. They do want something to happen. But when you leave ungoverned areas in a country like Libya, that's what led to Mali, for example. But obviously, what happened in Libya over the weekend is a gross shock to everybody in the world. These individuals had migrated into Libya just looking for work in the oil fields, and to be treated like that.
So what do you do, though? I mean, does Canada, now that I mean, even your party was voted for part of the mission anyway.
Yes. Well, they supported it right in the beginning.
So what do you do now?
So, I mean, what you have to figure out is you got to do something that's going to have some effect that's actually going to work. And, you know, there are countries in the region, Egypt is one of them, and others who have a role to play here, which we're not sure they're playing yet. I think there's a great need for huger diplomatic effort. Canada has to be part of that. We don't even talk to Iran and their players there, as you talked about yesterday. Something has to be done that Canada can be involved in to have a plan where the people who are most affected by it, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, all the other countries around there, they have to start playing a role in finding a solution with their own people, frankly.
They want UN involvement. Joyce Murray, what would the Liberal Party say about that?
Well, I would personally certainly never advocate that we just jump to a conclusion about what to do. We'd have to have a very thoughtful conversation and really think deeply about what's behind what's going on there, and whatever actions we take, what's the next step after that? And but Evan, what this brings to mind for me is the recent Conference of Defense Industries Association report. They've just come out with their annual report, and basically they say this country does not have a defense strategy. The degradation of our capabilities. I mean, the people that are working in the Canadian Armed Forces are heroes, and we respect them. What this government has done, though,
decade of darkness, Joyce. Just remember how you guys gutted the military.
A big increase in resources, has cut back the resources, and what this report says is that the current operations mask a great weakening in readiness and capacity.
I've read the report.
So but the bottom line is this: would we even have the capacity to do a mission somewhere else? Not according to the conference analysts.
Okay, and fair enough. And I've read that report as well. And there are real concerns about the capabilities now. But I don't want to get into that right now. But Joyce Murray, let me go back to you just to try to get an answer. ISIS is now in Libya. The Egyptians and others want the UN to have a strategy to intervene. The Liberals voted against the military intervention in Iraq, but voted for the Libyan intervention in 2011. Would the Liberals support some kind of re-intervention there, because Libya has become a failed state and now a base for ISIS? Okay,
well, let's look at what the Liberals actually did vote for in Iraq. We supported having special forces there. We believe that Canada has to be part of a coalition to stop ISIS, and we all know the reasons why. We disagreed with the Prime Minister on exactly how to do that, and we believed that Canada had better ways to contribute to that coalition. So we need to be part of this conversation, but we shouldn't jump to conclusions as to how to assist in yet another country when we have an underlying problem with our capacity.
I mean, unfortunately, as we all know, and I got about a minute here, the timelines of we don't determine them. The Egyptians now have asked, they want an answer. The UN may have to deal with this. Let me go back to quickly, Mr. Bezan. If this goes to the UN, what does the Canadian government have a position on ISIS in Libya, or would they go for a NATO, which the Italians want, and or a UN brokered mission that could extend the fight to Libya, complicating matters even further?
But at the same time, Evan, those decisions haven't been made yet. There hasn't been a proposal brought forward either to NATO or to the UN yet. We'll consider that request when it comes forward, of course. But at the same time, our mandate and where our focus is helping Iraqi security forces and the Kurdish Peshmerga deal with this terrorist threat and making sure that this real disease doesn't continue to spread, because this radicalization, this jihadist movement is, as we're seeing, is spreading and is becoming a real concern to overall regional security and, of course, security here. And it is unfortunate that Joyce continues to politicize every time she speaks.
What I would ask is that whatever happens, that the government and this Prime Minister is open and forthright with us and with Canadians, which they haven't been, not about the mission and not about the cause.
I got 10 seconds. Mr. Harris, last word.
Okay, you asked about the responsibility of Canada. Canada's responsibility to do something that works, not just go around making slogans like Gaddafi must go, Saddam must go, Assad must go, ISIS must go. We've got to find something that works, and that involves engaging seriously as a player in trying to find a solution with the players that actually count here, which are all the neighbor states. Egypt is one, obviously. Saudi Arabia, very important player.
And there's discussion with Saudi Arabia today.
They're acting for it's their brand of Islam that's being distorted in this way and being used. So they have a stake. All the neighboring countries have a stake, and they've got to find a solution. We can help by being there and trying to help find that solution.
Right. Well, of course, lots of questions remain. Does Canada have a responsibility to Libya, a country that we participated in the bombing effort? And again, I was using John Baird's words when he said we're committed to a transition to a democracy. That didn't happen. And now that we got our eye on that situation as well. James Bezan, Joyce Murray, and Jack Harris, great to have the three of you on. Obviously, the complexities keep mounting, and I appreciate your perspectives.
Thank you.
Thanks, Evan.